We've got the very latest controversy in the world of college football. It involves a head coach, and it involves a player. And this one's all sorts of interesting. Here's the backstory on all this, because there's a lot here. Attorneys for Ole Miss and head coach Lane Kiffin filed a motion to have a lawsuit against them dismissed. The lawsuit was filed in September by former Ole Miss defensive tackle DeSanto Rollins, who said he was kicked off the team for missing practices and meetings during a mental health crisis. This from ESPN. The lawsuit alleges that Lane Kiffin intentionally took adverse action against Rollins on account of race for requesting to take a mental health break but not taking adverse action against white student athletes. It also alleges sexual discrimination on the basis that Ole Miss has not taken adverse action against female student athletes for requesting and taking a mental health break. And furthermore, there's some audio of the interaction between Lane Kiffin and DeSanto Rollins. This via Front Office Sports. This apparently took place back in February or March.
If you would have come here when you kept getting messages, the head coach wants to talk to you, and you saying, I'm not ready to talk to him.
I wasn't.
Well, what world do you live in?
I don't see why you gotta be disrespectful, honestly.
Get out of here. Go, you're off the team. You're done. See ya.
Because
See ya. Go. And guess what? We can kick you off the team. So go read your rights about mental health. We can kick you off the team for not showing up. When the head coach has to meet with you and you don't show up for weeks, okay, we can remove you from the team. It's called being the It's called hiding behind and not showing up to work.
All right. So that is the back and forth there. So now, of course, we've got mental health involved. We've got a $40 million lawsuit involved. We've got Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss filing for it to be dismissed. A lot of stuff happening there with that back and forth between Lane Kiffin and DeSanto Rollins.
Yeah, I think what you're getting is I think you're getting a peek behind the closed doors of just the difficulties for players who are dealing with mental health issues, and also I guess you'd say the coaches that are having to deal with it too. It's a very complicated situation because in some instances you have people who are battling stuff which only they truly know what they're dealing with. But on the other side of things, there's procedural things that you're asked to do as a student athlete, and there's health care and there's resources that are provided for you to help you through these things. And I think the tough thing is for young people is if you were supposed to, do X, Y, and Z, and if you're battling with something and you have these resources or you have these things to get some help, but you don't take advantage of it or you don't follow up or you don't communicate, it becomes hard then for, I think, people to sit there and say, like, well, what's going on? And that's why I think it's so many people are going to be quick to judge and quick to rush to make a decision on how they feel about Lane Kiffin in this instance or what should happen with DeSanto Rollins. I mean, look, this is a 3-star recruit who's been there now for, I think a couple of years, if I'm not mistaken, or a few years. A defensive lineman who I think's played 3 games in his career since he got there in 2020. And, I don't know what he's battling with. Again, only he kind of knows that. But clearly it sounds like from the audio, which we don't even know if it's edited. Like, one thing I could tell you is, depending on the audio that was released, like, we don't know if that's permitted, in this lawsuit, if that's a part of that discovery process, if it's been edited in any way. We don't know if there's any more to the conversation. And so I would just caution people when you hear this sort of thing, not to rush the judgment of anyone involved, because we don't know. But I'm curious about more of just, what things did he not take advantage of that it seemed like Lane Kiffin was talking about? I mean, if a guy's battling something, but as a head coach, you don't see him for 3-4 weeks, and yeah, you might know of it, but he never returns. Like, he's asking if you're okay. He's asking if you're okay. You don't have the, you don't want to meet with him. You don't want to text him back. You don't want to call him back. You're putting the coach in a really, really tough spot. He's trying to prepare for season-win football games, take care of 84 other scholarship guys, 100 other guys, and you're not even, regardless of what you're dealing with, you don't have the decency to at least text him back, communicate back, go meet with him, the guy that you committed to and signed up to go play for. So I just think there's a lot to these stories that we kind of get quick to rush the judgment and take one side. But I hope people are patient for more of like facts to come out, because it sounds like when something like this gets put out to the media, that it's something that's more built towards helping to get a settlement, to make something like this go away.
Yeah, I had a couple thoughts on it. My first question was, when did that conversation take place? Was that during season or was that out of season?
It was March.
So it was not in season.
No.
All right. So here's what I would say. The first thought I had was, you can't go an extended amount of time and expect that a staff, especially the head coach, when wanting to understand what's going on with a situation like this, there's going to be two things that take place. You're going to talk to your staff, like the doctor or the resident person that handles those type of situations, and generally you're going to talk to your head trainer. So if it falls outside of the realm of what your head trainer is able to do, there's someone that they have to talk to in these instances to figure out what's the proper protocol. So in that respect, in that regard, I'm wondering how much of the other staff members, because this really does fall outside of a head coach's scope of work, right? A head coach is not supposed to be a psychologist or someone who handles, someone who says they're having mental health issues. Now, with that being said, you're leaving things up to chance as the player if you do not take the request. Just because, and I want people to understand this, unless this man unless they had to come get him, like they had to literally come get him and take him in for help because of how severe the mental health issues that he was dealing with were, unless that's documented, there is absolutely no excuse to not go meet with your head coach. In fact, I would say if you are having mental health issues, you go see your coach, even if it's your position coach. So I wonder where that information lies. Is there any information of him going to talk with his assistant, like his position coach? Was there any type of communication in regards to what he was going through and how he could be assisted? Because to me, it doesn't make sense to say, well, I had mental health, so I went missing for 3 to 4 weeks. If you've gone missing for a week as a scholarship player, a week, that's going to be addressed. That's not like, oh, we got the 3 weeks. Well, where's he at? It's being looked at, and it's being addressed long before 2 to 3 weeks go by. So with all that space in between, what was the communication? What was the line of communication before you get to the conversation of the audio that was released? So that would be my biggest question.
So the conversation they had, which led to this, is that in late February, Kiffin told Rollins that he was going to move from defensive tackle to the scout team's offensive line because he wouldn't transfer. And then, they had a back and forth. And then Rollins just disappeared. So he left for 3 weeks, three and a half weeks. The football staff tried to get a hold of him throughout that time several times to meet with Lane Kiffin and discuss everything further. And he just no-showed. He wouldn't respond. He wouldn't answer.
To me, that's a courtesy. For him to even have had that conversation with Lane Kiffin, that's a courtesy. Because in that, Lane Kiffin does not owe that kid a meeting after it being handled that way. He doesn't even owe him a meeting handling it. If what you're saying is 100% accurate, he doesn't even owe that kid a meeting. And you could just move on. And you just move on from a kid like that.
Part of the conversation they had, and apparently this is also recorded as well too, is that Lane Kiffin told him, listen, when I was trying to meet with you, it wasn't to talk about your position or making you change positions. Like Lane Kiffin was telling him, like, I was trying to talk to you about what's going on. Like, where's your head at? Where's everything at? And the guy just kind of ghosted him, like didn't respond. So for me, I just look at it and go, the courtesy aspect, like there's hard conversations that happen with your boss, your parent, coaches, etc. And I understand, like, mental health is a real thing. It should be taken seriously. Everybody knows that. Everybody's dealing with something, and you can't just dismiss it just on the grounds of, well, no, I need you to be here at this time. But at the same time, if somebody is trying to get through to you and there's an obligation there, you gotta meet me halfway. Like, I can't just understand what you're going through if I can't even get you on the phone or have a conversation about it. And that's where you lose me with the whole $40 million because you weren't sensitive enough to my emotions.
I think the other thing people have to understand and realize is, and LaVar, you might know this. This is probably different than when we were in school. You know, when you committed and signed to go to a school, like, you were there. Like, your commitment was for 4 years, at least, of your eligibility. Now it's changed where it's like a 1 year, and every year it's like a renewal of that agreement to go there. Mm-hmm. And within that agreement, you know, you have certain things you have to abide by as a student athlete if you want to continue to honor your scholarship and be provided the resources that you're provided at that university. And that's why I think in the clip you can hear a little bit of it, but Lane Kiffin tells him, go back and read it. Like, it obviously, things have evolved to the point now where it does factor in mental health, those sorts of issues, and physical health issues. And it doesn't negate a player from not abiding by those responsibilities or what his duties are within that agreement.
That's correct.
I mean, so that's where, to LaVar's point, like, that would probably be the first person you go talk to. I mean, a lot of these young men look at a head coach as a father figure, and it's going to come off as, man, that's really tough or really critical of a guy, you know, or a coach saying that to a player going through a tough time. But you also probably don't understand the background of all this with Jonas just laid out. When there's prior discussions about position changes, there's other things that factor into it, and he's asking about the well-being of this kid. And if all that stuff's recorded and hopefully it comes out in Discovery, it can provide greater clarity to the situation. But either way, then when you follow it up with a $40 million lawsuit, you're going, okay. It makes you so much more skeptical about it because, you can see why, like, Lane Kiffin was trying to give him an opportunity to play just on a different side of the ball. Otherwise, maybe he's not going to Ole Miss anymore. Maybe he's going to a smaller school to play. He's got a transfer portal, those things he can utilize. And if he's just then kind of trying to use it because he feels like, the coach coached him hard and had some things to say to him, that happens probably in a lot of teams across the country. He's not the first player.
Every team.
Yeah.
It happens on every team. You're going to have disappointments with players on every team. That's just what it is. That's part of competition. That's part of playing a sport, is understanding that sometimes it doesn't work out exactly the way that you would like it to work out. Look at Jason Kabinda. Like, he was a linebacker at Penn State, and a hell of a linebacker at Penn State. Goes to the pros as a linebacker. But you know what? To make it onto the roster, he was moved to fullback. He is now a fullback in the National Football League and has been able to do it for a couple years now. Sometimes a coach will see something and they're going to make a decision off of what they see. Now, why he put him on scout team, or was going to place him on scout team on the opposite side of the ball of what he was there for to do, that's immaterial. If the team was needing him as a scout team player and a scout team player as an offensive line, then you know what you should do? You should do it. I'm going to ask for clarity while I'm doing it. I'm not going to not do anything at all and say, well, I'm not doing anything at all. You're not playing me. I'm being moved to scout team and being moved to scout team on the offensive side of the ball. Who knows? You might have ended up being a much better player being an offensive lineman than being a defensive lineman, and that might have been what salvaged and prolonged your career. Now, if you're going through mental health issues because of that, then he had better have some really, really good documentation of having those conversations and going through the exercises, the proper, not your own, the proper protocols and exercises of what you do when you're having that type of issue. And that would have still meant doing it through the team. And they would have briefed Lane Kiffin on what was going on. It sounds like to me Lane didn't know what was going on and wanted to have a conversation with the kid about what was going on. If you have mental health issues, you got to get your mental health issues addressed. You don't go disappear. You want to get them addressed, and you have to get them addressed. What are you doing about your classes? What are you doing on your daily living? All those things have to be addressed. So it doesn't add up to me where you say, it's justified to say I was mistreated based upon race, I was mistreated based upon my gender, when you weren't cooperating. It sounds just like a classic situation of you're pouting and you're not cooperating. And even if you're pouting, you still cooperate. It just sounds like it wasn't, the young man, unfortunately for him, did not handle the situation the right way. He did not go through the proper channels in terms of how he handled it in order for him to be looked at in a way where what he's saying is it's valid.